And Bibi Hadshaw of SMN News, you have the floor.
Thank you, Rolika. Good morning. Thank you. Good morning, colleagues, ministers. Good morning. My first question to the Prime Minister. Prime Minister Marcelina.
Yeah.
You mentioned restlessness.
Yep.
Another minister, rumor.
Yeah.
Minister, when there is evidence, there is no longer a rumor. When 2 complaints have been filed, this is no longer a rumor. What I'd like to know, as a mother to a father of a young daughter, Dr. Marcelina, have you met with the victim in this case? Why is the victim being victimized over and over? And after several times being heard, only yesterday a procès verbal was taken. Have there been any disciplinary measures? Prime Minister, there are cases from the time you took office, not a month later, a civil servant was sent home for allegations. I haven't seen any evidence yet. Allegations of wrongdoing. But here you have a case where the victim provided evidence of harassment and that person is still on the job. Can you tell me what are the processes and what does the ILO convention says about harassment, especially sexual harassment in the workplace? Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Hodge, for your question. I first of all want to make a few general statements concerning this topic and your questions. It is a culture of St. Maarten that sensitive things and in and outs of an organization has to be one of the other way legitimized to be discussed in public and in social media and in the media. And preferable how we saw it, it always have to catch up with a sensational dimension. Realizing this development every time again in this community, as a leader of government, I think that it's time for me to prove my community that we should deal differently with these sensitive topics. It should not be used for social media entertainment and sensationalism. I have, as Prime Minister, a task to secure the trust and the safety of my people, but especially the civil servants that I had as Minister of General Affairs. I have to guardian confidentiality of the people that work in my organization. I have to handle these cases with integrity. And fourth, everything has to happen in a context of professionalism. All the cases that present has to be taken care of expeditiously and, of course, with objectivity. The necessary due diligence must take place, especially realizing the sensitivity of the matter and also considering the vulnerability of the ones involved in these cases. As the Prime Minister leading this government, I do not feel I have any urge to entertain social media with direct questions when, why, and how long each encounter took place. This is for my organization, thinking on the protection, the safety, the trust, and the integrity of my organization. How is it being taken care of in general? I have no problem to give some exposure on how it works in my organization. But one thing, it starts with an incident allegation to whatever. It can be verbal aggression on the work floor. It can be physical violence, bullying, intimidation, theft, fraud, harassment in whatever form. These are ways that not desired behavior can present not only in government, but in all working spaces this can take place. What is important for me is to guardian for a work establishment, work atmosphere that people can feel safe, and in case something happens, that they feel comfortable, they have the trust, the confidence that it's going to be taken care of. And that is what we are going to do. About the policy at place. All types of incidents that I just mentioned, verbal, physical, intimidation, bullying, are going to be handled in a way that there is for this a work process, a norm in our organization, and I will go in details about it. First of all, how does that work? How does the process work? First of all, an incident presents. For example, an harassment. It's an allegation that something happened. First of all, we have to verify what did happen. And already we are talking in social media about the victim and the perpetrator while we are in the phase of investigating the case. I think that is wrong for both parties. It is as such already wrong that this happens, that there may be a victim and a perpetrator, but I think it's extremely wrong that the investigation is taking place and we're talking about victim already and perpetrator. I think that is not correct to those involved. So we have to respect these people too. They have feelings, they have their integrity, they have their pride, and we are all over the place with them on social media and in the press. I think that is not correct, and I don't think I want to actually entertain this form of dealing with especially what I can speak for my organization. An incident takes place. What happens? The person that is involved in that incident has the first priority to share it with whoever he or she wants. That is her basic right to start with. Secondly, in the organization, the way the process goes is that the person contacts his or her manager, and from there on, the manager discusses, has a conversation with the person, and then makes a conclusion and say, I'm going to delegate this to the Department of P&O, Personeel en Organisatie. The person is then guided to P&O, and there is a first meeting. There is the exploration of the incident, talk about the problem, and then after having understood the dimension of the complaint, we have to document it for us to move forward with the case. A documentation takes place, we call that a report, a process verbal, and from there on, we start then with the investigation of what has been documented. That is again another step, and that is actually the hearing that has to take place. It's also described in the LMA, as everybody is talking about the LMA. This is the process, how it works, is also guided by the LMA. That's the complainer, the one that complains about the incident. After we have documented, analyzed after the hearing what transpired, we have now to go to the other party, the counter partner, and that is the complainant. That's the one that you're complaining about. The same process takes place. First, we have to speak with the person, understand the dynamics of the incident, a report is being made. And then we call that also a process verbal. We have one from the one complaining, and we have a report from the complainant. After that, we organize sometimes, if it's necessary, there is a third party involved also in an incident. Somebody that saw the incident, heard about, was there listening to what happened, heard that somebody hit another person, visual interpretation of what happened. Sometimes there is a third party that you have to hear to get evidence if whatever has been reported, if that is correct. So we go sometimes also to actually consult third parties that may be involved in the incident that the complainer and the complainants is talking about. In the meantime, talking with the victim, if it's a victim, if we can call it a victim, or actually we're not talking about a victim, we're talking about the one complaining, the complainer, sometimes we realize that that person is very touched, psychologically wise, physically wise, that we think, no, in the meantime, we think that it needs professional help. A house doctor can be involved in the case, a psychologist can be, or no, we have a counselor in our organization that in the meantime also can parallel with the procedure that is being followed, is also included in the case. After we have had our hoor en wederhoor, that is how we call it in Dutch, hearing and counter-hearing of all the parties involved in the incident, a report is drafted by P&O, and this report is actually then delivered to the Secretary General and also to the head of P&O. So listen, we have done our research. This is the end conclusion, how we see it. This is a copy for the department head, the manager of the department under which the person falls, and this is for the hierarchy, you have to respect that too, and you give a copy to the SG, the Secretary General. And then the Secretary General, with the P&O, they have the advices related to the end report, and that is then presented to the minister. So the minister then receives the report, he then draws his conclusion, thinks what is more for me to do in this, perhaps I want to talk with people or not, but anyway I have a report after investigation, I have some advices, and then it's up to the minister, what am I going to do with this particular incident? And in this case, it can be an informal warning, it can be a formal warning, it can also be a disciplinary measure. It can be a suspension or even a dismissal, if that is the case. So in principle, it starts with a claim in the direction of whatever incident, as I mentioned, a few physical, sexual, bullying, and then it gets more, it crystallizes in a formal incident. And then depending what it is, we walk the walk structurally that I have just explained to you all. And that is the way the system works. And I think that is the way professionally also you should deal with such cases. I regret and condemn that these things happen on the work floor, but we have to realize something very good. The more you have more than one person on the work floor, there is a potential that something that is not desirable can happen between two persons that is not the intention to happen on the work floor. For example, that bullying, physical violence, sexual harassment are things that happen and can happen, but I condemn and should not happen. But we must not make it come over as if something went wrong in that organization because the organization failed. No, the organization wants things to go good for everybody. The organization works to work on a safe environment for everybody. And if something happens that we cannot be in the brains of those causing the problem, we should still maintain the sentiment that we have to radiate, that we are working, giving attention to the cases, and make sure that there is still trust, that we guardian confidentiality, and especially protect those that have been involved in that incident. And that's why I was very reluctant and very careful to entertain the media for the entertainment of the sensationalism of sexual harassment. It's not about that. It's about creating a culture that we should not be interested in the sensation and knowing who it was, in which ministry the person worked, and what happened exactly, family of who that is. I think that is absolutely not relevant if we want to work towards a safe working place that has integrity, that can give trust to the people and guarantee the confidentiality that everybody can feel safe to move on the working floor. That is my reaction. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prime Minister. I would now like to invite Jacqueline Hoffman of the Daily Herald. You have the floor. I would also like to inform it will only be one round of questions as we are limited on time. Jacqueline, you have the floor.
Minister, mevrouw mij, please.